Welcome back to Simplexity Analytics Seasonal Report for July of 2024. This month we have four markets that are the most bullish, and that is silver, Nasdaq, Australian dollar, and the Japanese yen. One market is the most bearish in July, and that is corn. We're going to highlight for this month the Australian dollar and the Nasdaq, and then as our third market, as always, we will cover the S&P E-minis. First off, we'll have a look at the Australian dollar. Now, July is the most bullish month of the year for the Australian dollar, seasonally speaking, and it has had a 67% winning percentage right there. And what that means is that 2 out of every 3 years, the July has finished higher than it has opened, and it has made just over $16,000 in this backtest. If we look at the Simplexity seasonal indicator at the bottom, we see how July kind of comes in at the tail end of this rally that we've had right here over these last few years. And that makes sense because going into the middle or later stages of the summer is where we've had the annual or seasonal high or the top coming in the Australian dollar before it drifts lower for the rest of the year and finds its bottom usually in the spring of the following year. So if we look above at the price chart, last year, we saw July begin with basically a little bit of sideways action here before we got a rally, and then it went lower. A couple years ago, same thing. We went a little bit lower initially, and then we went higher before starting its drift down lower. And then 3 years ago, we didn't get any rally at all. It just went lower right basically from April on. So let's see how this looks on a seasonal heat map now. Looking now at the heat map for the Australian dollar, we see that we use a $1,400 stop for this market. This is a very easy heat map to read. We got red up here, we got red down here, and we got green in the middle. So since this is a bullish month, we want to concentrate on the green areas, which are the bullish areas, and that is right here, these 2 weeks. The middle 2 weeks of July are the 2 weeks to concentrate on. We get past this little bit of a red and then past this holiday, which has been light green, but then we get into these darker greens that have a lot of days horizontally and vertically here, which is what we look for. So this is the bullish area. Right from the Monday, July 2nd, we want to start looking for buy signals for these 2 weeks. We're going to do things a little bit differently this month. We're going to showcase the S&P E-minis as our second market this month, and then we're going to do the Nasdaq last. And that is because the E-minis that we do every month, well, this month happens to be the second most bullish month of the year, but it's the most bullish month for the Nasdaq. So since these are both stock market indices, we want to compare them side by side. We want to show the stronger one last just to give that comparison. So if we look at the seasonal indicator at the bottom, we see how July has seen a strong rally each of these years. And we see how in the price chart above, this July a few years ago, straight up. A couple years ago, it started off kind of slowly here at the beginning, but then really went on a tear towards the end of July and into August. And then last year saw a pretty good rally for July as well. So let's see how this shapes up on the heat map. The heat map here for the E-minis isn't quite as easy to read as the Australian dollar one was. But when I look at this, the first thing my eyes would be drawn to is this column over here, which is the 5-day holds. I always look at this first and see, okay, there's some strength that is not just one particular day, but this is 5 days of strength. And then I want to look over here and see how it corresponds with some reds and greens. And it does. It has some bright greens in here, which is what we want. And this 5-day hold takes us right into this area, which starts off with a bit more red. So there a little bit more bearishness comes in. So the first little bit of the month has some greens, but nothing too great. And we've got a few bright green days in here around the holiday, but just because of that holiday, probably going to stay away from that. And then the next week has really one day here, nothing great. But the only place I really look for a seasonal buy for this market would be in this week here, starting July 15th. I'd look at possibly on the Tuesday for a turnaround Tuesday trade, and then later in that week for some strength. And then it has a little bit of staying power, like I said, with that 5-day hold coming up in the middle or end of that week. And lastly, here's the Nasdaq. As we mentioned, July is the most bullish month of the year. It has finished higher in July 88% of the time in July, and it has made over $91,000. So this is a very strong month for the Nasdaq. But if we look at the seasonal chart, we're going to see a lot of similarities between this and the E-minis. We see it has a very strong upswing here as July comes in. And then we see on the price chart how last year had a modest rally after a little bit of a flat area here for a couple of weeks. The year before that had a very strong rally, and the year before that had a strong rally. So the chart looks almost the same as the E-minis, as you would expect. We're dealing with two different stock indices here, so there's not going to be much difference in that. But where the big difference is going to come in will be in the heat map, which we'll show you now. So in comparison to the E-minis, we see how the Nasdaq doesn't have any red on it until we get to the last week of the month. And if we go to the far right column here, which is the 5-day holds, we have the 5-day hold, which is the fifth best of its entire year, occurring in the second week, and this would be on July 11th, which is about a week earlier than the E-minis was. It was in this week right here. So we have strength right from the beginning of the month until I say the end of the third week. We have a little bit here in the last or in the fourth week, but it starts to taper off. We have some just blank days before we get into some red days here. So your bullishness starts at the beginning of the month and goes till the end of the third week. But really, I would focus in here in the second week because there's a lot more bright greens here, and it's also coupled up with this 5-day hold. So if I'm looking for buys, I'm going to look for those trades to occur after the Independence Day holiday. So that would be beginning of the following week, Monday, Tuesday, or if there's no signals clear there, I'm going to look middle or end of that week as well. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified on our next videos. Simplexity Analytics, making complex trading simple.